Yo guys, just a quick thing before going into this video. It is really appreciated if you do like, comment, subscribe, retweet when I put it out, just because it does give me the best impression to see whether I should continue with these sort of videos, whether you like them, whether you enjoy them. Even obviously for the comment section, just give feedback on what you'd personally like to see more in certain videos. It's all trial and error from my perspective at the moment. A lot of things need to be improved, but eventually we will get there. On a side note, on this video in particular, the audio on my headset, for some strange reason going through Skype, it was just kind of creating a little bit of a banging noise in the back of it to an extent, so I had to cut the intro as well as my sound, or just on my one, by the way, not on anybody else's. It does get that similar thing a little bit throughout it, but it's manageable throughout it on my side of things. It's just the intro that was the kind of the bit that I had to cut, so we just kind of go straight into the video, asking Weefreeman how specifically he got into esports. So obviously enjoy the video, and remember to like, comment, subscribe.
Yourself, I mean, you've been around a fair while since, I mean, I've been around for a fair bit as well, and you've kind of always been in around that same sort of time frames as well.
Yeah.
So for you specifically, like, what was it that kind of got you into esports initially? What attracted you to it, and how did it develop, shall we say?
I guess from watching and sort of being involved in the scene since about 2013, I've been watching CS:GO anyway, and started playing it, and then being told, "Oh, you have a voice that you can do casting for," and I was like, "Oh, okay. How do I do this?" And people, "I'll just commentate over games." So I did like 1 or 2 demos, and then basically saw that the community was lacking within CS:GO. That is obviously within esports, lacking a bit of community games, no real sort of tournaments going on around the time. So I created the infamous, or famous, whatever you want to call it, the JGL, which is the Juan Gaming League. It was a bit of a meme. It was good fun. Basically, the first one was a massive mashup. It was nothing to do with JGL. I did that the second time around, took over it, did all the streaming, the tournament organization, providing the servers. And by providing servers, I mean going and trying to find different teams who had servers I could use for that night, and then get everyone on TS and just put them into teams. Did this for about 7-8 months, I think. It's quite good fun. Did a few different things on it. Passed it off to the UK CS:GO crew, and they've been having fun trying to do it every week, but it's been a bit of hit or miss from what I've seen. And then apart from that, because I basically left it because I want to get more involved in the casting, so I've done anything from the small like ESEA game for teams to anything up to WESG in front of 28,000 people, and that wasn't at LAN, it was actually just via outsourced. And then I've done a few LAN events like Insomnia Scotland and also Lithuania. There's an event called Game On. Apart from that, looking to get into PUBG, a few other things, watching it as well. Never really got into League, but mainly PUBG and CS:GO while I'm at the moment. Apart from that, I work full-time in IT and sales recruitment.
Nice. So, I mean, for you specifically, was it when you kind of first got involved in esports, were you aware of kind of the scale of how big it was and things like that, or did it kind of take you by surprise a little bit?
Yeah, no, I was fully aware of where it was at with everything that was going on. I was in CS:GO pre-skins, and then I saw everything blow up around that. Teams being sponsored by betting sites, everything from that side. Easy Skins, our best team to come out of the UK scene so far, obviously. But I mean that's another topic. But the one and only. But no, yeah, I mean I had a pretty good idea. I've been sort of watching anything from like Quake, like going on for years, watching it. And sort of the competitive side from that. So I kind of knew Dan from the DDK from that area as well, from his involvement in Quake. But yeah, no, so I've been aware of it, and I knew the sort of scale, and I'm quite business-minded, so I had quite a good idea of where it's going to be, and really wanted to get involved in it, and couldn't really see a way into it, so I kind of just hammer-headed my own way into it, and basically run tournaments so I could get casting and, well, esports experience.
Sure thing. So from a casting perspective, I mean, you've been doing it for a while now. What would you say is the hardest part of you trying to learn casting and growing within it?
Learning is basically actually trying to figure out how to learn and actually getting the confidence go on and do it in front of people, and actually then streaming it and then continue doing it over and over again. But then the biggest stumbling block I've had is the fact that I have my own flat. I've been moved out for the last 4 years so I've been living alone. I've had to work full time. I've not been able to put as much time into casting as I'd want to. There's a lot of people who are, I don't know, anywhere from 16 to even 25, I guess, who are living at home with their parents, who are doing commentary, who have no real responsibilities. They're able to just go in and do commentating. Fantastic. I'm completely jealous. I'd love to be able to do that, but I asked to go back home and I was told no. You can if you want. You can't bring your PC. The reason for that is my voice is quite loud and it just goes straight through walls. So it just then wakes up everyone. And if I'm having to try and do, I don't know, so let's say over the weekend I did the Asian Pacific League for WCA, and that was for about 9.5 hours. And if I was trying to do that during the week, it's just not possible. So I miss out on a lot of opportunities. So that's my biggest block is time, I guess.
Yeah, that's fair. I mean, I think I can kind of imagine, especially like from a caster's perspective in particular, that you might be keeping your parents up late at night and things like that, especially when you do have a slightly louder voice. Then especially the emphasis, if it's a really big round and you're getting really pumped, then it's got to be a pain in the ass to people that are in the next room sort of thing if they're not kind of into that sort of thing. But that is fair enough, good sir. So obviously, thank you very much for joining us on this episode. Like we did say, guys, this intro episode is just kind of giving a brief background on everyone before we start hitting into the fun topics and flaming on everyone. So Stuart, obviously the Irish legend himself. So for you, do you want to give us a little rundown on kind of how you first got involved in esports and what's happened since?
Yeah, I actually want to explain how I actually get into gaming. I was quite late, I would say. I wasn't really your sort of typical gamer. I think I played PlayStation 1, PlayStation 2, like FIFA and stuff like that, but I was always very sporty. I played rugby like 6 days a week. So how I got into gaming, this is actually quite a funny story. I think I was 17 and I was staying at my missus's house and I was just literally got into bed and I got a phone call from a friend to say that another friend of mine had been knocked down at a house party and the guy has drove off. So I was a bit of a brawler when I was younger, so I got the phone call to say I might need to come down and sort something out. So I headed down. Nothing really happened. We were there for hours, like, conversations. Where is he? Trying to find him. And I think it was about 5 a.m, pure near enough daylight because it was the summer. And I went back to a friend's house and he introduced me to Modern Warfare. And I played with the Americans and was just totally blown away that you were able to speak to people online. These American kids
technology.
saying stuff about my mom and stuff. So so yeah, that was my first experience in terms of like actual online gaming. I'd never done anything before. So I played console for 6 years, something like that. I was really, really late. I didn't get a PC. I built my own PC actually when I was about 23. But I was really late into things. I played sort of 2 COD events. The first sort of engagement I had with esports was actually the end of Black Ops 2. I had a friend who said to me about this team, and it was Optic, that they were doing this 24-hour live stream. I think they were doing Modern Warfare 3 at the time. And it showed me what they were doing and then explained everything to me. And I was probably a bit different than Tom. Tom maybe knew about esports. I had no clue. Like it just blew my mind as to what people were doing. So I was quite late. I played a couple of COD events, and it wasn't really until maybe about 2 years ago that I got into the likes of Counter-Strike and League of Legends and stuff. So bit of background. I was the owner of Aerox about two and a half years ago.
I remember. I think me and you have had a conversation on this one previously. So yeah,
possibly. So I was the owner there, and then had a bit of a fallout with the other co-owner at the time, and then I went with a few of the guys from Aerox that sort of stuck by my side, and we took on Wild Pro Gaming. It was they were a big COD American team, but the problem is working full time and trying to run American teams. Just like I was having to get up in the morning and ask them how their practice was while they were just going to bed, and it was such a disaster, and I had a bit of a rough time. I sort of 2 American guys gave me a bit of a hard time, and I lost a bit of money. So I just decided after sort of discussing with some people in the Irish community, they discussed with me to say that there wasn't really any support over here. They had gone to UK events and they got no backing, nothing. So that's when I just sort of said, you know what, I want to get involved in sort of my own community and deal with people, you know, at a local level. So that's whenever I started NSG, and I think that was possibly 2 years ago. So we were pretty sort of small staff. I've just sort of kept things, sort of keep things to myself. I think the problem I have is it's very hard. It's very difficult in who I can trust now. So I've sort of just built things at my own level. I've just, you know, I haven't gone and promised teams the world. I've just sort of gone with what I feel I can do for them, and I probably will continue to do that for as long as I can, and just gradually build it up. But yeah, that's sort of basically my background.
Yeah, for sure, man. I mean, one thing that I think I've said to you before as well is that I think, especially with the like recent news on the Overwatch League in terms of how it's working, in terms of like demographics, in terms of having like specific, obviously, teams representing specific areas, and it's a very different theme in esports, right? In terms of what you get from normal sports, because of how that kind of works, and because of the global presence that esports has, it's a lot different. But like, you're probably one of the few organisations that kind of, because of there's not much else necessarily going on in Ireland, then you've kind of managed to kind of make the most of that and kind of settle in, and you do it. I mean, even now, as much as you might have like UK players elsewhere, but you've still got like Irish academy teams and scenarios and things like that, so you're still trying to promote the grassroots through that, which is like, at the end of the day, it's really, really good to see, because you can see the progression as it's happening, and by having that specific demographic, I guess, especially, then it allows you to market yourselves a lot better in a specific way to that one particular area, right?
Yeah.
So for you, I mean, you kind of mentioned it on the kind of the trust side of things in certain people, but what would you say has been the, like, potentially other than that, has been the hardest thing for you, like, trying to grow NSG?
One thing I would always say to people is, in terms of Northern Ireland and Ireland as countries, they're always very far behind in terms of anything. Honestly, you know, whether it's government, technology, you name it, we're so far behind. So the likes of, you know, growing our fan base with regards to our social media, the Irish community don't really use the likes of Twitter. So stuff like that has been very, very difficult. Like, even though, you know, the likes of NSG, we may only have 1,400 followers, but it's sort of a dedicated fan base there of people who tend to use Twitter. You know, we would tend to use our Irish Facebook groups. There's a CSGO one with like 3,000 people on it. There's Irish Gamers, which has like 4,000. So that's where they sort of tend to keep themselves. They're not a big community when it comes to actually using social media. So it's very difficult. We've had to put our sort of necks on the line from the start and try and just go with what I think is going to be, you know, successful, and try and build a fan base. But it's been tough trying to, you know, I would say people probably look at us and say, you know, why have you only got 1,400 followers from 2 years' work? Well, because, you know, I'm trying to stick with something that I believe will work. It's, you know, it hasn't been easy. As I say, it's, you know, Aerox, I think probably at the time in a couple of months had more followers than what NSG does possibly now back then. So yeah, it's just, I gotta sort of, I just tell people, like, you know, have faith in me. You know, I have a process. I know what I want to do. Just have a wee bit of faith, and we'll get there. So that's probably the hardest part. I suppose the other thing is probably getting teams to, I think because teams have been so used to not having organisations that they feel there's no future. So it's very difficult to try and keep players motivated. One thing that I try and do, and we've only really just brought it in recently because I've started to get sort of quite dedicated players. I try and base everything on sport. That the likes of sport, you would play on a Tuesday, you train on Tuesday, train on a Thursday, and then your matches on Saturday. So I try to bring that in, incorporate that in with our teams. That, you know, we can't force you to play the game. You got to want to play the game, but let's try and dedicate 2 nights of practice. So, and then your sort of one day of the weekend is your game time. So you use your Tuesday and Thursday to practice, and then you treat your weekend stuff as like your game. So it's took a while to get that. That's what I want to try and incorporate, so that people see this as a priority. You know, if I'm going to play rugby, I have to text or message the coach and manager on a Tuesday to say I can't be there. I think that's been the hardest thing, that with players not turning up to practice and people sitting around waiting. It's been a lot of time wasted, but I think we're getting there. People, I think, start to realise that, practice is important, and a lot of these guys don't do sports, so like this is this is what their hobby. So, just trying to get them to practice and sort of stick to a schedule has been quite tough, but we're getting there. It'll come. So.
Yeah, fair play to you. I mean, I think on the social media side of it, I mean, you touched on it in the Aerox side in terms of, like, I can't remember them at the time. I mean, I had one or two moments with them myself, but like the problem is with those, like those is they weren't that organically grown in terms of, a lot of it was done through giveaways, a lot of it was, you know what I mean, in terms of growing that fan base. And you see it quite a lot from organisations that literally just appear out of nowhere now, and they just literally randomly got 10k followers, and they're all legit, but it's all kind of, how many of them you could actually turn around and say are actual like fans and support you as an organisation is completely different. And kind of, Tom, one thing that I wanted to touch on with you as well, a little bit leading on from that, is you're someone that, I mean, you end up kind of randomly just like casting games in your own spare time as well when you can. Sort of, you'll load your own stream up, see what's on, and start casting. In terms of that, do you find it quite easy to promote doing those sort of things, or is it quite difficult to do?
Yeah, I mean, it's quite easy, but usually you have to have the organizations on board. So if I'm casting the games, like at the moment, for example, doing it for like Nerd Rage and a few other teams, it's been a bit quiet in the last few weeks. But if I'm teaming up with them, if I want them to promote it on their Twitter, everything, and then to get followers in on there. My rule is, if you're paying me, I'll do it on your Twitch. If not, I'm doing it on my own. That's for my own brand. But in regards to that, actually then getting exposure to it, it can be, but it's then doing it at a targeted rate, and it's the process of social media, of having to, it's the repetitiveness of actually getting your name out there. And like, I start a game, I can do it then. Halfway through, probably not, unless it's like a major game or something like that I'm doing, or then after the game as well, and then try and promote like any clips or anything. But yeah, it's a bit of a tiresome sort of process, but you get there.
Yeah, it's joys of social media in general, isn't it?
Yeah.
But I mean, saying that, I mean, Stuart, that being said, you touched on a couple of other things in terms of like the comparison between normal sports and, say, like if so, or even just general work, right? So if I'm late for my actual job, I have to call ahead and call my manager and be like, yo, I'm not going to be there on time, my train's late, whatever it necessarily is. And that kind of professionalism hasn't really fully translated into UK esports as a whole, and even esports in general. There's still a lot of things missing from it. But I mean, myself as well, and I've gone through that process of trying to be able to kind of instruct people to do that. So if they are going to be late, like getting those group chats. I mean, it's communication, right? At the end of the day, communication is so fundamental in making sure the process of everything goes smoothly. But overall, so I mean, I'll give a little roundup for myself rather than boring everyone to death. I'll try and be quick. I feel old as shit when I start saying this, genuinely. Like I'm like, because I started playing games like predominantly was Call of Duty 1, the first ever Call of Duty. So this is going back to like 2003, right? So this is like, I'm an old bastard at this point. But that, for some strange reason, I don't know what it was, that game just took my control. Like, it was like, I can't remember, I think it was around year 10, and you like in school you have like the 6-week summer holidays, things like that. I was a social person until that game came out. I was like football all the time, I'd be going out all the time, and that game came out, and I just literally no life that summer holidays of just playing Call of Duty 1 at all given points. And does anyone remember a program called Xfire?
Yeah.
Yeah, so that is like a chat in-game kind of thing, like what Steam is to an extent, but it's more scaled down. And like, I'm pretty sure if you look at my hours even now from from Call of Duty 1, it would translate into what most professionals have in nowadays. And I was still shit at the game. That's the irony, right? So yeah, that game was kind of what brought me into it and kind of attracted me to it. I was playing that for quite a while. Then Call of Duty 2 came out in about 2005, I think it was. Spammed that even more to this day. Call of Duty 2 is still my favourite game, which is kind of why I'm eager for games like Battalion to come out, or Battalion 1944. I can't wait for that. Yeah. Especially, but yeah, it kind of grew from there, to be fair. Like, I was spamming it a lot. I knew, especially for Call of Duty 2, and that was what kind of introduced me to Dignitas as well, because Dignitas at the time had a really, really good Call of Duty 2 squad. But then it kind of went through a weird transition. Like, my PC died before I was meant to go to an I-Series event. I was playing for a team It was like a community team that we had, but it was a team called Team Esports UK, which later went on to become Team Cooler Master. But the irony of it is, we were sponsored by Cooler Master at the time, and they were going to give us a bunch of free stuff, and my PC broke before the event, so I didn't even go and get all this free stuff, which was half of it was the stuff that I would have actually needed anyway. But, you know, that's fun. Past that point anyway, it was kind of, when I started getting back into it, I got a new PC in like 2013. I decided to start playing Call of Duty 1 again, and like me and my brother at the time decided to create Weefreemen as a community team, just playing around with some old friends, things like that. And from that point onwards, it just kind of developed. Like, we started doing that as the good old like clan tag, you know what I mean? Everyone, like, before organizations become a thing, it was always a clan, right? And from that point, it just kind of progressed. Then my mate introduced me to League of Legends, and that was the point where I'd kind of realised the scale of how much esports had grown since I'd been away from it. Because, I mean, this is like season 3 of League of Legends, but even at that point, like, it was so massive at that point. So from like a viewership perspective, from the money that people were spending on buying teams and buying players, it was just insane. And that was probably what kind of influenced me the most from a business and marketing perspective, just because the global presence that esports does have is a marketer's dream, right? So that was probably the big thing that attracted me to it the most. I think from that point, we continued with Weefreemen. We decided to move it into like Counter-Strike. I think our first team was for I-53. So back in like 2014, I think it was. And from that point, yeah, we just done that for about 2 years, essentially, near enough. I think we stopped it in the start of January, so rest in peace to that bitch. But yeah, and past that, I guess it was kind of, for me now, what I do is I've just decided to start producing shit content instead. So, I mean, that's even better. But at the same point, for me, the way I looked at it, and the irony of it is I was going through my notes page on my phone the other day, and half of the stuff that I'm doing now content-wise was the same stuff that I had in my notes 2 years ago that I wanted to do back then, but I was just, for one reason or another, didn't do it. I was lazy, however you want to say it. So I find it quite weird, though, that 2-3 years on, there's still a massive gap for that sort of content, you know what I mean? Like, I'm not saying mine is great by any means, but at the same point, there's still a lack of it, like there and thereabouts, and obviously Gfinity coming in is probably trying to solve that a little bit, and I will actually give good props to them because a lot of the content they have been putting out has been really, really good. But yeah, for me personally, that kind of, now it's just doing a bit of content here and there. I kind of just end up working as like a middleman / advisor for various organisations, teams and players, and just trying to sort out various bits here and there for them and helping out when I can. But besides that, obviously moving forward, it's just trying to get like content on a consistent basis now, because at the end of the day, even from my perspective, as much as the content, I know that it can do a lot better, but consistency is everything at the end of the day, right? Like, if you're putting out, everyone can tell you the same thing. Like, I never remotely look at YouTube or anything like that from a money perspective. The only reason I'm doing this content is from a networking perspective, because I've had more people since doing like 20 odd videos that I've done come up to me and being like, oh yeah, I really like that, by the way, we might be doing this in future, we'd love you to be a part of that, we'd love you to come do this. Since I've done those videos, than what I had in the whole like 3 years of running an organisation. And to be fair, as shit as Weefreemen was, but it was still reasonably good in certain aspects, right? So for me, that's kind of, I probably took the selfish point of view and decided to do it from the fact that I want a full-time job in esports, in marketing, in an ideal world, or team management. So for me, I knew I'd probably reap the rewards of that doing this more so than what it would be running an organisation instead. But at the end of the day, it all falls down to personal preference and desire. Like, for me, I probably lacked I had the ideas, but I lacked the execution in doing certain things, right? And that's where the difference comes into it, is if someone's really, really motivated to kind of do those things, you can definitely do it. And I think certain UK organisations are definitely proving that to be the case. But moving on, so Jasmine, are you alive?
I guess so.
Hi, Jazz. So Jazz, for you specifically, how was it that you got involved into esports? Yeah, like what first kind of brought you into the scene? What like caught your eye to then start getting involved in games and in esports?
Okay, well, I mean,
In gaming.
that's how the whole gaming thing happened. So yeah, I obviously started off with the good old PlayStation 1, PlayStation 2, etc. And then one of my brothers, he played Source and stuff with his friends, and he wasn't very. This is the brother that came to iSeries and like helped me admin and stuff.
Met him a few times,
So he went through a period where he was like he was in hospital and things were really bad. Like he had like collapsed lungs, so he was in hospital for a very long time. Both of his lungs had collapsed, and he sort of went into this state of like he wouldn't talk to anybody, he wouldn't do anything, he would just sort of play video games. And yeah, exactly. And it wasn't like he was playing games by himself though. It was like his friends from outside of school, they would all be playing games. Like his friend that lives down the road, they'd all be playing games, and it just looked like so much fun. And then also, I guess for me, it was like a way to actually have something to talk to him about, and like sort of, I don't know, I guess to actually like get to hang out with him.
Sure.
That sounds so cringe.
No, but I get you.
No,
Especially,
no, it
like,
doesn't.
So, but to be fair, like we're probably all the same scenarios in terms of like the people that we've met through gaming and things like that. You know what I mean? It is a sort of like, as is any sport, it brings people together in certain aspects. You know what I mean?
Yeah, definitely. So yeah, that's how I sort of started playing CS and stuff. So I started off playing a bit of Source and what have you, and then I played Crossfire for a very long time, if any of you know what that is.
Wasn't it like Crossfire was like the really big in Asia FPS, wasn't it?
Yeah, still is. It still is. So yeah, I played Crossfire for a very, very long time, and did like small community events and stuff just with a few friends. I played with all of the Americans, so I would have 180 ping at all times, which was great. I loved it. But yeah, I mean, we'd have like small community events. We had like karaoke nights on good old Ventrilo. That was fun. I actually still have the videos of our karaoke nights.
Upload that shit.
It was good fun. I loved it. And obviously we had our clans and all that stuff. My brother went to Insomnia with his friends to compete in Counter-Strike, and yeah, but he just came back and he was like, oh yeah, it was so good, and like he brought back like crates of this energy drink called Jolt, and it was like in the shape of a battery, and when you open it, dude, like smoke and shit starts coming out. It looked amazing. But like, yeah, he was just saying how good it was, how like there was so many people, everybody's just there to play games. Like from that moment, I always wanted to go to LAN. I was like, at some point, I'm gonna go to LAN. And yeah, I guess it wasn't even that long ago, I guess. I went to Insomnia with a few friends, but just like as a spec, I didn't go BYOC or anything. And we did the whole like, yeah, going as spec. And then they wouldn't let us in BYOC because I just wanted to see like what is the fuss about all of this like BYOC-ness. And then we didn't get to see it. But like Insomnia as a whole, like yeah, it was great. But I think after having done like community events with Crossfire and stuff, and obviously because I played CS a lot. Sorry, I forgot I was on TeamSpeak and somebody just spoke. Okay, yeah.
Smart, you loyal.
I forgot what I was saying.
BYOC LAN, attending LAN with friends, playing CS.
Yeah, so after having done like the Crossfire events and stuff, I played CS a lot. I played League a lot at this point. So yeah, I just sort of decided, well, it would be a pretty good way for me to go for BYOC, but also it's just something to add onto my CV, and it's something just from experience, you know, because like none of my friends would do BYOC, so I was like, well, I don't want to go to BYOC by myself and have no friends, so I might as well go and work. So yeah, I volunteered, and I volunteered for CS or League because I was really big on those two games at the time. and they put me on neither. I was put to
That's when you just get put on like Dota 2 and you realise.
well,
there's just no
actually,
luck.
they put me on Rocket League, so I had never played Rocket League at that point. I didn't even own Rocket League, but on the little manual you get, it says that it's a requirement that every admin owns the game. So I had to then go and buy Rocket League. I played one game of it, and I was like, no, screw this. Yeah, I went there. I admin Rocket League. I got to see the LAN environment, and I loved it. And I was adamant that I wanted to do CS. And John Kelly was sat opposite me at LAN.
Good old John.
I had no idea he was the CS person until a while after we had got speaking. I spent the majority of that LAN like not talking to anybody. Like I barely spoke to the admins. Didn't make many friends, and my first friend was John Kelly. Love John Kelly.
Jazz, you know when you take the piss out of people for looking at the floor instead of saying hi to you now, is that what you used to do basically?
No, not even. Okay, no, I will tell you one thing. I met one of the volunteers that was there. He wasn't even an admin. Actually, no, I'm scared to say this in case he sees it.
Say it. Don't be such a wuss.
It's on my YouTube channel. We'll get like 20 views if you're lucky, so we're good.
Well, he's not even big into esports, but whatever. Yeah, I was walking around all of LAN with two of the volunteers that I met, and the guy was like, he was saying some really cringy stuff, and he was like, oh, you know what I really want to do right now? I was like, what? He was like, I really want to kiss you, and I literally just laughed at him and walked away, and I was like, right, that's me done with talking to people now.
And that's how Jazz met Adam. No, I'm joking.
Game is being socially awkward. I don't know what you're talking about, Jazz.
Yeah, I mean, every gamer I've ever met has been the most sociable person I've ever come across. Like, don't know where this stereotype's coming from.
But yeah, so after speaking to John, I told him that I wanted to do CS, and I guess after that event, I got an email saying, oh, would you be interested in doing CS? So I was like, yeah, sure. And then I volunteered for iSeries for about a year, like just over a year. And then John told me that he wanted me to go to Epic LAN with him, and asked me if I would volunteer with him there. So I said yeah. And then I started adminning Epic LAN. And then after that, it was Jacob from ESL asked if I would volunteer to do EPS stuff online for them and help them with some of their tournaments. So I said yeah, and it was just like one event after another. And then John Kelly left me. And and then I had to do UK Masters as well. I got offered UK Masters and I said yes. And then John Kelly left and I was thrown right in the deep end. I was terrified. Like, honestly, I was begging John not to leave me. I was like, John, please don't leave me. I'm so scared. I don't know what to do. And he was like, Jazz, it's fine. You're the one that's been doing this. And like every event that I would do, he would say, well, Jazz, if you like think about what you've done, like you handed out all of these servers, you managed to allocate all of this, you were the one that made sure this was on time. So it was like every event he would sort of give me more and more responsibility, but it wasn't like he just threw me in the deep end and then left me. It was like he sort of built it up. So yeah, John Kelly's a great teacher.
John Kelly, yeah.
But yeah, and then from that I did ESL stuff, and then the finals at Comic-Con, and then Mountain Dew League with ESL and ESEA, and then I got an email from Faceit saying that Sliggy and John Kelly had recommended me as an admin. This was 2 days before ECS, and I had already bought my premium tickets. So I already told you guys this story. Yeah, and then I just sort of weighed up the fact that this is like an experience that loads of people do not get, like to actually be in the booths, to hear the comms, to meet the teams, to get the whole sort of experience. Not many people get this chance. So I said yes to volunteering for that as well. And then following that, I have had another offer that I can't talk about right now. But
I'm pretty sure I know where it is. But yeah.
Okay.
I won't ruin it.
Yeah, and that's. I guess it was just like one event after another, and I guess when people see like how much you try and do for the scene and like how passionate you are about it and stuff. Obviously, you knew after the Ufrag played and like how like I would like catch up with your games and we'd watch them online. I'm getting a phone call. Okay, not now.
Professionalism, Jazz. Come
Yeah,
on.
like how I. Yeah, like how I caught up with your games, and we had our Ufrag community before it was a Ufrag community. Like before we did the 10-mans, we already had the squad, and then we did our 10-man weekly, and obviously you asked me to join Ufrag at social media, and then from that, after Ufrag died, ads messaged me and asked me if I'd be interested in doing social media for Endpoint, which I now do. So, yeah. Oh my god, I feel like I've done like one thing after another after another.
I didn't want your life story, Jazz. Jesus Christ.
I'm sorry.
Wow.
Please crop the video.
No, I'm joking. Like, it's fine. It's literally what we wanted. Like, I just rabbited through mine like a bitch, so it's fine. But like the one question I was actually going to have for you is like especially from the admin side of things, like obviously it's been a difficult process for admins within the UK, especially just because of the way that a lot of people react to it and things like that. Like for you personally, what's been the hardest thing about admin in UK events?
Oh god.
I know this is like a list.
Okay,
Like, we could
okay,
literally
yeah.
have hours and hours of stuff here, but I'm genuinely intrigued.
I think I know. I would say the one like hardest thing about adminning is the fact that when I'm at LAN or when I'm online and I'm trying my best, dude, I absolutely try my best to make sure that people have the formats that they want, even when people higher up than me are telling me like, this is your schedule, you have to run with this, you have to meet your stage final. I will always try and like compromise and like consider if I was a player, what would I want in a format, what schedule would I want, and like obviously everybody knows about the like 4 a.m. finish or whatever it was, but like
that was a fun one.
at the end of the day, it was like I tried my best to like consider what needed to be done versus what players wanted and teams wanted, and at the end of the day, if I didn't meet that stage final, the company would have had to pay out more money, even if it was like half an hour over, the company would have had to pay out more money. And then I get in trouble because they're like, well, if you had followed our schedule that we gave you and done best of one, then this wouldn't have happened. So, like, I think that's one thing that people don't consider. But the hardest thing, I think, is when people don't have an issue online or at LAN, they don't message me. They don't come to my desk and talk to me. They go straight onto social media and they just complain and they bitch and they moan, and then everybody ends up hating me, and it's like, none of you have actually spoken to me about why I've done this. None of you have had a conversation with me or like given me advice or like ways to improve. Like constructive criticism, is always welcome, but for people to just say like I'm a shit admin, to say that I'm biased, to say all of this stuff when I volunteered to try and do my best, like I don't think that's very nice, personally. I would say that's the hardest thing, because obviously I'm trying my best. But if people can't come and tell me when they disagree with something, then I don't know what else to say.
So one, I think we kind of spoke on it. Well, I mentioned it a little bit earlier, like before we started videoing, in terms of like the casting aspect and like how people are critical with that. And it's kind of, to me, very similar in terms of the admin way of things, especially like everyone thinks that, so like if you're then the tournament admin, that you're going to be the best tournament admin that's ever existed, everything's going to be perfect, everything, you know what I mean, at all given points, and they don't kind of account for like any other aspects of it or external issues, whatever it necessarily is. But I find it even more funny in terms of the fact of like everyone will get so critical of you, or say like anyone else, say like Tom for whether it be casting, Stuart for the way that you run your organisation, me for shit content, whatever it necessarily is. But as soon as like UK player wise, and it's not just CS, it's every single game in fairness, like where as soon as you give any critique back towards them and say like the way that they play, they will be like, well, how do you have the right to judge me on when you're not the player? And the same thing surely applies to the opposite way of things, in terms of if I'm doing my job, I have more experience than you do in that job, so what then gives you the right to say it? But they still think that they can, and they still think they can go mad on social media. And to be fair, that point is probably the biggest one, in terms of it happens in all aspects, and no one decides to kind of confront the issue. The first thing they will do will be run on social media, start giving it, start moaning, start flaming about certain things. And at the end of the day, by doing that, what does it help? Like, there's no resolution by doing it that way, right? It's just then going to continue the problems. You're then creating more beef with people for like literally no reason. But on the social media side of things then, Jasmine, what was... I remember, like, in fairness, I remember when I gave you the social media role for Ufrag, and you were kind of umming and ahhing about whether to put you in social media role, whether to do marketing, things like that. And to be fair, you smashed it in the social media side of things. Like, everything went well, everything went smoothly. So, I mean, do you enjoy doing it? Is it something you kind of want to do in the future more so as well?
Social media specifically, is it something... I mean, everybody knows I studied game design at uni, so like a big thing for me was learning and sort of figuring out what makes games / this game so interesting for people, what brings members of the community together for like esports. And I guess the social media side of it was more for me to understand, and also for me to meet more people and to obviously like build a community. So like everybody knows the Ufrag 10 mans, they were like, I would say that was like the biggest like community sort of interaction we've had like outside of LAN. That was
they done really well, yeah, especially the streams and the videos that you done for them, Jazz. Yeah, they were great.
Oh,
had to do it. But no, to be fair, like you did do a really, really good job with it, like, and everyone else, like, I think at the time, cause I think we had like 2 CS teams as well, and like most of them started getting involved in it as well. So people, like community people, then realised that look, they're actually being able to play with half decent players as well. So I think everything just kind of meshed together from that point of view.
Yeah.
And
I would say, I mean, social media as a whole, like, I love doing the social media stuff. It brings people like in the community together. It gives us like a chance to obviously look into more CS stuff. I like look into how our Street Fighter teams did, our Rocket League teams, our CS team. Obviously, I go down to Gfinity. I've gone and like networked at loads of events with loads of people. So I mean, yeah, I love it. I think it's great to meet people in esports that have like a similar mindset. But yeah, I think long term though, I want to make games. That's obviously why I'm studying game design at uni. So yeah.
Fair play. Alright, well, in fairness, I think we've kind of overdone it, well, maybe overdone it a little bit, considering I planned on this being an hour thing, and we've probably been doing it for about 2 hours overall in terms of me setting it up, so I apologise for that. But obviously, guys, just remember, obviously, if you are watching this video, this was just the initial video, just to kind of give everyone a brief background on all the people that are partaking in it. Obviously, from this point forward, we will be going into some more serious topics, as well as just some joking around topics of who we can flame or whatever it necessarily is. but yeah, obviously past that, so obviously remember to like, comment, subscribe, hate, whatever it is you feel like doing today. If you do have any suggestions of certain topics you would like us to cover, by all means let us know. And other than that, we will see you soon, so peace.
Bye.
See ya.